Okay, I think we're rolling.
I think so. Hey everybody, I'm Ben Yee, Democratic State Committeeman for the 66th Assembly District in New York and Secretary of the Manhattan Democratic Party.
I'm Elissa Stein. I am a county committee member of the Assembly District 66 Part A. I'm secretary of that part. And today we're going to split things in half. So the first thing we're going to talk about is Al Franken.
Big news. He just resigned
He
earlier
resigned today. So we thought we'd do some talking about that. And then the second thing we're going to talk about is a mystery lawsuit that even I don't know anything about. But
we'll demystify it.
Ben's going to unwrap that for us in the second half of this segment.
New York Democratic Party is suing the city council. Anyway. First
Okay,
thing.
I'm super
Now
curious
you want to
about
talk
that.
about it. Now
I
you're
wanna
like, oh, let's do that first. No, we're doing
We're sticking to our
Franken
plan.
first. So
We're doing Franken first.
what happened,
I want
Alyssa?
to talk about this. He
Yeah.
resigned today.
He did.
And while no sexual assault is okay and heartbreaking that we're in this position, what I'm having trouble with when it comes to politics in this country is that a Democrat said, I did this, I'm sorry, I'm resigning. The Republicans are throwing full party support behind Roy Moore, who's been accused of molesting children. And the head of the RNC, who is the president, has also been accused by multiple women of assaulting them. So where in this political landscape, I don't even know what the question is, except that this really sucks. That
Yes.
the Democrats are standing up and saying, I was wrong, and I'm sorry. And the Republicans are being like, woohoo, we're going to get a Senate seat.
Well, yeah, right. It's a step beyond standing up and saying, I was wrong and I'm sorry. It's also, and I'm going to risk another Republican member of the Senate because I believe I was so wrong I have to leave.
Right. So there's
And it's a very-
morals and there's no morals, all existing in the same government. We've gotten to the point now where it's so divided and so divisive that something as abhorrent as abusing children sexually is okay if it means that you win a Senate seat for a Republican.
Right. I don't know if the right distinction is morals and no morals. I have a very, very smart cousin who is a conservative. And when I was younger, and the Republican Party was very different when I was younger, up until, whatever.
Right.
3 years ago was a totally different thing, 4 years ago. But we would talk all the time about what was right and what was wrong and how the government should be run and what the role of the federal government was to do. And I would always say, you try to make these moral arguments, and the thing that I learned the most was that people's morals are different, and even though they might believe similar things, they believe them at different levels. So for the Democrats, sexual assault and sexual abuse is a really big problem, and people need to resign because they've done these awful, awful things.
Right.
But apparently on the Republican side, that is not as big of an issue. However,
Okay,
I
wait,
want to
I
be
just-
really clear. I don't think the Republicans lack a sense of values. They value things that most other people don't think are very important.
Like guns.
It's not even that they value guns. Like, they value the right to have guns, sure, but what they value in terms of, if you believe them, what they value in terms of guns is the ability to oppose federal authority, the ability to, or the right to have life or death power over other people, the right to be left alone by the government and have to pay no taxes.
I hear that, but the ability to sexually abuse a 14-year-old.
Right.
A 14-year-old is apparently okay. I mean,
It takes a backseat to their other values. I think it's really messed up, but that's the situation.
As not just a Democrat, but as a human being who's a citizen of this country, how heartbreaking.
Yes.
How heartbreaking that it's come to this, that political gain is more important than the well-being of a girl or a woman. And that people are being knocked by the wayside. The the people who were victimized by Al Franken
Yeah.
got an apology. The people who were victimized by Roy Moore said, "You're lying." I mean, just even
Actually,
the
ironically,
disparity
Mitch
in that.
McConnell did say he believes them. He just doesn't care anymore.
Roy
He
Moore doesn't
stated he
them.
believes
really?
them.
Oh, Roy Moore
Yeah.
said that they're all lying. He's never met any of them.
Mitch McConnell said he was asked point blank what he thinks, and he said he believes them. He said, "I believe the women." And then a week later, the Republican Party came in and endorsed
So
Roy Moore.
I'm kind of wondering, where is Jeb Bush? Where is Mitt Romney?
Mitt
Where
Romney had
are-
a statement.
Did he? I didn't
Mitt
see
Romney
it.
came out and he said, what was it? He basically
We've
said,
sold our souls to the devil.
Yeah.
Because that's what he should be
we
saying.
should have morals over party. And he opposed Roy Moore winning.
Remember when it was like the really lighthearted country over party, and now it's morals over party?
Yeah.
How much lower can you go than that?
Well, so the point that I was trying to make with what I was saying regarding the different valuations and different moral frameworks of the two, essentially what comes down to the two parties now, is that when you're thinking about politics in the United States, when you're conceiving of who should stay in a position and who should go and who should be up for election, who should not be, the Republicans have made a determination that what they value are tax cuts for the wealthy, a dismantling of the social safety net, and all these things. And these are more important moral agendas for them than, say, the protection of individuals from predatory people. And their political strategy hinges around their ability to change these laws, just as much as the Democrats.
Tax cuts for the wealthy. Tax cuts for the wealthy people. If there's any Republican out there watching, tax cuts for the wealthy are more important than raping of children.
Now
That's
that I
just-
don't think you could argue. Like that is
Yeah.
absolutely their position, and
I
it's
can't
very
believe
clear in their
those-
legislative agenda.
Those words just came out of my mouth. I feel sick. But that's where we are. So on that really depressing and dark note, we're gonna hopefully liven things up a little bit with the lawsuit that you talked about.
Yep, perfect segue.
Yeah.
So the New York County Democratic Party is suing the New York City Council, and this is over the appointment of a commissioner to the Board of Elections.
Oh.
So the
okay.
way the Board of Elections works in New York is that it's the last sort of seat of patronage. The political parties determine who should staff the Board of Elections. It's not a civil service position. The people who work there are actually determined by the parties themselves. And actually in the state law, it says that the two parties getting the largest votes in the last election will be in charge of staffing the Board of Elections, essentially. So in New York, that's the Democrats and the Republicans. So the way it works out is you've got commissioners, and these are sort of the folks who sit on the board of the Board of Elections, or I guess you'd say they are the Board of Elections, and they oversee the administration of this thing. And the way it's set out is the county parties in New York get to recommend candidates to the city council for who should fill those positions.
How many positions are there?
So there's 2 for each, actually. So there's 5 boroughs, there's 10 commissioners, 1 Democrat, 1 Republican in each of the
Got it.
counties.
Okay. And do they change on a regular basis? Are there term limits or things like that?
There are term limits, I believe, but this came up largely, well, actually, I guess all the counties, yeah, there are term limits, because all the counties had to put in their recommendations for this year. And every county has its own Board of Elections, so that's every borough, New York, Queens, New York being Manhattan, Queens, Kings or Brooklyn, Richmond, which is Staten Island, and the Bronx. So
Wasn't there a big scandal with the Board of Elections in Brooklyn
there
last
was.
year where a whole bunch of people were taken off the voter rolls?
Okay.
That was back before the election when I wasn't paying a lot of attention
Right.
to local politics, but I remember that was a really big controversy that names were purged off the lists.
Right. So actually, you're right. Let's start with like why this is so important and
But let's
why
check
this
on
is
how much
happening.
time we have left, because Oliver's already given us some signals.
3 minutes. All right.
3 minutes.
So a little bit of background here. There was a problem in the primary last presidential election
In 2016.
where a bunch of people who were Sanders supporters or identified as Sanders supporters were like, oh, I was purged from the rolls. this actually is true, and there was a WNYC investigation which found that people had been purged from their roles
In Brooklyn. Right.
And, well, it's unclear whether it was like beyond Brooklyn, but mainly in Brooklyn. And after that happened, Alan Shulkin, who was the commissioner of the Board of Elections in Manhattan on the Democratic side, ended up getting videotaped saying that voter fraud is a gigantic problem, and he believes that there's a big issue here, even though there was no evidence to support this. So
It sounds very much like the president claiming
Exactly.
voter fraud with no...
He was forced to resign. The Democratic Party of Manhattan put forward a candidate which was not moved on. So the city council received this recommendation for a woman named Janine Johnson, who is still the current law chair of the New York County
I was
Party.
going to say, that sounds like a familiar name.
Indeed. The city council did not take up that matter within 60 days, so the recommendation expired. Then the city council would have had the option, the Democrats in the city council would have had the option to appoint somebody within the next 30 days. They didn't do that either. So then, after those 60 days elapsed, the party had another 30 days to recommend somebody new. It didn't.
Oh my God, so people are just sitting on their butts not doing their jobs.
Exactly. So Alan Shulkin has remained in this position despite resigning since last election.
Just because nobody was there, so he has to hold on to the job when there's no replacement?
Correct. So, very recently, in the last 2 weeks, Melissa Mark Viverito, who's the Speaker of the City Council, decided to try and put somebody she's very close with in as the commissioner. This is a part-time job. It pays $30,000 a year, but it still has power over elections, power over who else gets hired into the Board of Elections, and you get paid money to do
the
this
speaker
job.
is leaving.
The Speaker is leaving, so she wanted to get her candidate in.
It's kind of like
in
one
the
last
last
thing
minute.
before
Exactly.
she gives up the job.
His name is Andy Prashak. She tried to ram him through. There was a situation 2 weeks ago on Thursday in which the city council was going to be interviewing candidates and then voting later the same day. The county party of Manhattan found out about this, met early in the morning to offer a recommendation. It didn't do much. The council still met and still ended up putting through Prashak. So now the county has filed suit against the city council to get an injunction. And the goal here is really to prevent that appointment from going through until January, when Melissa Mark Viverito will leave the council,
And they'll
no
be
longer be
president.
speaker,
Ah,
and hopefully the new speaker, at least in the eyes of the county party, will be amenable to, in some regards, following the rules, I guess.
So, okay, following rules is really helpful.
Well, to be
Although it seems like
fair, the
lots of people-
recommendation had expired and whatever.
Right.
but
Well, okay, and then people weren't actually doing their jobs.
Yeah,
which
nobody
is
was
kind
on
another
top of
way
this, ironically.
Following rules. Yeah, so it seems like at every level of government, there is laziness and corruption.
That's why we've got to be on top of these things. That's why we do these videos. That's why we have to talk about them. That's why you have to
should run
watch.
For office. So one more quick question about
Yeah.
this. The guy who resigned is now holding on to his job through all this hullabaloo.
Right, but he will have to be replaced, I believe, next year. His
Like
term is up.
eventually. Okay.
Well, his term is actually up.
All right. So I think that the lesson in all this mess is keep your eyes open and get involved.
Absolutely.
And if anything happens, speak up. Staying silent doesn't get you anywhere.
And it doesn't help anybody.
And it doesn't
just
help
leads to
anybody.
more problems.
Right. So bringing things out into the open may be hard and uncomfortable and scary, but in these times where it feels like change is in the air, you never know who you can help besides yourselves.
Thanks for watching.
On that note, next
Laters.
time.